Really? That's just maddening. That's like good for me, not good for you.
Well, you didn't announce because we did not have audio, that we're just taking a recess until 7.
We are having the council is in recess until 7 p.m.
On the agenda, but we're just, you can come in, yeah, we're, so, I was like, since we didn't say this license, we don't. Right, even if you already knew that, yes, right, anybody.
Well. Goes after it follows yesterday. That's thing. Right. If you want to get rid of the but it's the same place. Which unfortunately means I'm not. So one thing I like is that this is therefore and you and they talk to you and next day or so. Yep. So I thought I like that. I just needed rather than with what? Yeah, I kind of figured, right? So there was that, right? And then the other thing was oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm not getting that. I'm not getting this right. And I blame myself. No, I wouldn't, but that goes especially. I would yeah. Wow. Wow. Just you. Just be a pissant. He's such an easy target, but he's sweet. It is. They have to like scan their receipts, somebody that doesn't create more work for you, but more work for them. They're the ones who are getting expensive. It's just a thought. Don't worry, I'm not. So let's see. Oh, I know. He had done his F1 F2 or no, sorry, F2 so remember it's an unlimited days and unlimited not an unlimited yeah, it's on. What? It's on. Oh, they already have it. Yeah. Yes. I heard. I think the note was like he has COVID and she's off island or something like that. And so, but I don't think they would have got it. It's like, really? It reminds you of the old bar crawl. Hey, another ghost star. Yeah. I got another one. You don't even have to go on the tour. I mean, were you here during the bar crawl days? No. Oh, you weren't? No. Oh my God. Oh my God. It was serious. It was serious. So it was I was probably 17, 18 was legal. So my first one I ever did was probably when I was 17 until I was 21, 22. and you had to go to every bar on the island. And I think there were 24 and have a drink. You had to finish the drink at that bar and then move back. I mean, there were a number of people who we know now that literally were just like crawling on the road. I mean, it was bad. It was very funny at the moment, but in retrospect. So I thought the minute I saw the ghost tour, it's a ghost, yeah.
Well, I think Persephone is open,
Yeah. Yeah, potentially.
But again, I think we've got to, again, it's not gonna stop. We're gonna see a whole bunch for next summer, I would guarantee.
We have to
But
draw a
it's
hard line.
cool. Like, all right, we tried it with her, it worked, but she also serves food and, it's,
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I thought it was very good.
so. They like Boyceville, where are they coming right at my ear when you were talking? You were in the car with someone, I never heard. I was in for 2 hours. Oh, okay.
Because it costs us all a lot of money, and then all of a sudden, you're trying to, oh no, that's not even. That's kind of negative, I hate to say it, I mean, sometimes that's negative.
Okay, there we go.
A skirt, by the way, starting to set a sample.
Hello, everybody. Calling the New Shoreham Town Council back to order. Can I have a motion to seal the minutes?
So
Or closed session second, please. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. I think Sven was saying this, but I think we should, for purposes of YouTube, so that in case public is watching, because I had a number of calls about this particular agenda item that we had the closed session about. This was solely, and it was very brief, a briefing from our new land use solicitor, because it's the first matter that's actually gotten before a judge since she was retained. And she wasn't sure how we wanted to be informed about those things. So it said discuss and act like there was something going on, and that's totally understandable. But I just think it's important for the community to know it literally was. It's this case. It's before this judge. There was really nothing of substance. In fact, the only substantive thing was her saying, do you like to hear about these things this way, or would you like me to send you a memo, sort of updating you? That was really what we talked about. So I just wanted you guys, because I know you have obvious and compelling interest in the suit, to know that, and I want the zoning board to know that it literally was just a briefing from the town solicitor.
Yeah, and bringing people who didn't know the issue.
Yes,
speed.
right.
So.
Yeah. So anyway, can I have yes?
Thank you.
David Lewis, 1335 Coonamus Road. So at what point does the public become knowledgeable about what the lawsuit content actually is?
So it exists on the state database.
And how do we get that data? Isn't it possible to get it published somewhere inside the things that we're already used to working with, like ClerkBase or the town website?
That's a good question. I don't know, but Millie and I will talk about it.
Well, there has been evidence in the past. I wouldn't call it precedence, but it was very handy. On occasion, the first time it showed up on an agenda, it actually got attached to the ClerkBase item.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that makes perfect sense to me.
I'll let you all take it
It's
under
a really
advisement,
good
but I
thought.
think
Yeah,
the public
yeah,
would always benefit by being able to read the lawsuit,
Yes,
even though everything else is
yes.
behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I think the documents for the, this
is-
is not a but. I'm just asking Millie. I think those are all public, right? Those doc, like if I file a lawsuit, it gets published somewhere on the state's database. Is that right? Oh, interesting. Gotcha. Yeah. Hi, Julie.
And I think that's the point, though. The one,
Hello, James.
I guess that's part of the point. One shouldn't have to have access to all the state databases in order to access
I
public
think
information.
It's a really important point. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just for certain information purposes, the cases are available on the Supreme Court website through public access. You want to have access to every single document depending on their notation as private or public, but for the most part, all the complaints, all the documents filed are available on the public website. And I can send everyone a link to that if needed.
Thank you very much, James.
That would be appreciated. Thank you.
Yes.
Can I have a motion to convene the Board of License Commissioners, please? Right.
Second.
Oh, because it's
I
not.
thought we
here?
weren't doing this.
Oh, are we not doing? it? What's that?
The application was.
Oh, it was.
The
Oh, I'm
application
sorry.
was
I didn't
withdrawn
know- I
earlier
didn't know-
today. You
Oh,
probably
yeah,
didn't see
I
it
was-
because you
yeah,
were
I
off
was
island.
Doing other stuff on this off island. Okay, thank you.
No need to convene.
Strike that. Is there any public comment tonight? No? Come on. We have, oh, good. Thank you, Ed.
Ed Haid, 351 High Street. I have a concern about my good friend Steve McQueenie, who's not on the island anymore, but he had told me about the lot in question, that there is a lot of junk vehicles and sort of that lot was used as a dumping ground. And, I don't know. And my understanding is that the town had a role in that. That's when the sewer line was being put in up Sunset Hill there. So I don't know what is in there, but being in a butter to that property, if that land is disturbed, I have a concern about what's in there, what's been buried there for so many years, and what that means to unearth whatever's down in there. So also my friend Charlie here, he knows a thing or two about that as well. So just to put that on record, that that's my understanding. That happened long before I ever showed up here, but and that the elevation of that property is not originally what it was, and it's due to the work that was done on Sunset Hill and whatever things ended up in there. I don't know what that means, but all sorts of nasty chemicals and stuff can be disturbed and released into the soil, contaminating water. Some of the people around us have wells. So just to
Thank you, Ed.
make that note.
Thank
Thank you.
The consent agenda includes a proclamation in support of the National Veteran Small Business. That proclamation is available on a clerk base. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So
A second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Can I qualify my vote to say I'm not going to vote to approve the 2 meetings I wasn't at,
Oh, yeah, great. Thank you for putting that on the
right?
record.
So I wasn't at the October 6th open or closed meeting.
Great.
Thanks.
Item number 5, discuss and act on the contract
Hey,
for,
Molly, you were missed.
you were always. The contract for the interim police chief. Mary Ann?
So as you know, you appointed Paul Dean as interim police chief a couple of weeks ago. So what's before you this evening is an interim contract for him during the time as he serves as interim chief. This was reviewed by Tim Cavazza, labor attorney, and it pretty much mirrors the interim contract reviews with other police chiefs that were interim.
Gotcha. Any questions from the council about this?
are there any substantive differences or any special differences? Okay, thank you.
Would you say that word again?
Thank you.
Just come on. We're going to keep trying until you get that one right.
Are there any major differences?
Well, I did have a question about a change that has been made over time to be specific about the chief working Monday through Friday. Why was that change made?
It's always been Monday, at least the ones I put together have been Monday through Friday.
So when I requested copies of the last several, it was just in this one and the last one. So
The last, which
so I'm
one?
just curious why we would be specifying that we want our chief to only be working Monday through Friday.
If you look at the contract, it says Monday through Friday, and it talks about, where is it, about 40, it says, plus whatever evening or weekends hours that may be necessary from time to time in order to properly respond to the demands of the position. Employees has the flexibility to send his daily, weekly work schedule with the understanding the employee will be on duty for a minimum of 40 hours. So it's Monday to Friday with the flexibility and also based on weekends and holiday and evenings and weekends.
Yeah, this came up before, and it was, that was satisfactory answer to the council.
So Monday, so weekends and evenings are at the discretion of the chief, not.
Correct. The chief knows the demands of the schedule, and something may happen that requires the chief to come in on an evening. There may be call to the chief. from
Or they
staff,
could be
and they
down
come
an
in.
officer, or
Yeah.
they could be,
Exactly.
Mhm.
Could be any number.
which we are, yeah.
Thank you.
One left.
Oh, I heard. Almost all 10% of police.
I heard that all but 10% of police departments in the country are short.
Makes sense.
I would not surprise me.
I was surprised it was that high, but
Bill's gonna get pulled up and we'll. Just be ready, Bill. You're gonna have falls.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, ergo, the problem with finding some,
Paper Glasgow is offering $35,000 sign on bonus to do a certified police officer. $84,000.
But not from Block Island. It said it in the fine print.
I'm just saying that's how.
Yeah, desperate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Paul, I know we said this last time, but thank you, and I'm really excited, and I think this is a great opportunity for everybody. So thank you for
Yes.
taking it on and getting ready for next summer.
yeah. Sven said it well. No need to gild that lily. That's right. Is there a motion to approve this contract?
so moved.
Second. Motion's been made in second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the contract is approved.
Thank you.
Next, we have receive and act on a request from Chris Warfel to waive the fees associated with his application to amend the zoning ordinance regarding solar energy systems. Now, this comes up periodically. It has in my tenure. And I was looking at this and I said, Millie, I'm going to ask you, what do other towns do related to this? Because it's sort of like if we have a fee, there are expenses associated with it. If we have a fee, you know, but what,
Sure. So I did look into what other towns do, and it does run really across the board, everything from no fee whatsoever to up to $1,700. So, and they do range all through that, 700, 550, 400. Some would be, 500, but then that fee is put towards their advertising. So people run it in different ways, and, some just flat out, the flat out $700 plus the advertising. So the situation that we face in receiving these applications is that we ask for $100 application fee, and that the way that this is written is that they are then responsible for the $100. The applicant's responsible for the $100 and responsible for the advertising fees. When you do waive fees, when you choose to waive fees, you are waiving that advertising fee as well, which amounts to about $1,000 to the town, depending on the length and breadth of the ordinance, which needs to be advertised for 2 or for 3 insertions. So it does get very expensive for us. And that does not include any staff time except for the $100. And I will say that there's an awful lot of staff time that goes into these. It follows a very serious and strict timeline, requiring it to be, get reviewed by attorneys and staff members.
It seems to me that if an application, as a general policy comment, if an application is about, I use the word correcting or at least adjusting a policy, that's different than an application that's about that sole person. Does that make sense? In other words, if I want to make an amendment because I'm trying to build my house, and it's an amendment about my house, I don't see why that would be considered for waiver. But if it's about rounding corners of regulation, are we more open to that historically?
Is that a question for me? I have seen you waive fees
For
routinely.
housing?
Yeah,
Things like
absolutely. Mhm.
particularly for housing? Those are the ones that I
So
remember.
I have a question. If this proposal was instead to go through the planning board. And the planning board were to adopt the language and then they brought it forward, then the town pays for all of the,
Oh, absolutely,
right?
for sure.
So would that be a possibility for the applicant to take
So
it?
You're saying if planning initiated this?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess, Chris, I'm asking you this. Would that be a possibility for you to take this to the planning board and have them work with it and adopt it? I know it says in here that you have gone that route. I'm just wondering, like, if you have gone that route, why it's here?
I'm gonna give you, Chris Warfel, Ebbets Hollow, Block Island. I'm gonna give you a written statement because I think that might be easier to follow than me speaking.
Is this what we have, Chris, or something different?
Thank you.
That's all right, direction.
We can share. That's what you gotta give one to David. Chris, give one to David, please. And Sven and I will
You and I'll
work
share.
together.
And Paul doesn't get one.
Yeah, Paul. Sorry, Paul. Don't give one to McComb.
So this is a statement of public record. I'm submitting it to the town. I understand your question is why do I not submit this directly to planning? My understanding is that this has to go through the town council and then the town council has so many days to act on the consideration of this and so it's planning. That's my understanding. So let me read what I wrote with corrections. To the town council, town manager, and all committees and commissions. Block Island with what I term the three legs of the stool of energy policy is putting forth contrary and regressive energy and environmental policies, which in today's world and what we see all around us with environmental and energy and economic calamities before our eyes is very depressing. Who are these three legs? Block Island Power Company. PIPCO has introduced the most regressive customer generation policy in New England and has based them upon skewed and inaccurate and proverbially false analysis by the representation of the supposed negative economic and operational consequences of customer generation and energy conservation. I have not heard these arguments since the 1980s, where they were largely discredited and better economic analysis was implemented. We see that in the federal energy policies enacted in today's world, which PIPCO's management and the board majority apparently fails to understand and incorporate into reasonable forward-thinking energy policies. The facts speak for themselves. Every negative consequence of PIPCO's, there's one typo, says on, should say of, PIPCO's energy policies that I predicted has been borne out. Management and the board majority live in a self-isolated world enabled by the two remaining legs of the energy policy stool, the town of New Shoreham and the residents of Block Island. Going to the second stool, the town of New Shoreham. Looking to the future, I requested that planning updated solar ordinance to plan for greater incorporation of customer generation of renewable energy. After a 2-year process, I could see that the board chair would not move off her position that renewable energy was a negative on the bucolic image of Block Island. Remember, planning had not instigated any review or revision of these policies, exactly like affordable housing. All the changes are being instigated by non-board members using the process that I am using before you today. At the time of the most recent revision of the solar ordinance, the town council stated that it was a good start to revise policy. I told you that it was not. that you were not provided information that would help you visualize what planning had concocted. I feel they took advantage of the confusion of the language to hide the true intent of some of the board, led by the chair, to restrict people's right or ability to reasonably install renewable energy. The third stool that I feel is part of this problem are the people of Block Island. Those who live here have very little understanding of energy policy, leaving it up to the professionals to make and manage policy. If economics is called the dismal science, then utility economics and energy policy as enacted here is a close second. It does not help that BIPCO never placed their customer generation regulatory policy on their website, unlike every other regulatory policy that I can think of. This was hidden during COVID from poorly informed residents. Most likely the residents would not have gotten involved, in my opinion, but we will never know. Ultimately, one can point the finger only so much before it really has to be pointed at the people of Block Island. Boards and governments are not omnipotent. And when bad policies are enacted, people need to speak up. Here, I feel most people leave it to someone else. I have often been told by people they don't want to get involved. I have always said that I will not bring you a problem without a solution. If anyone of you can tell me when I've done otherwise, I'd like to know right now. When have I ever brought something to you of a problem without a recommended solution? I hear silence, so I'll say that you believe me. There is nothing I can do. I did, and I left it out of my comment on purpose, and I do so. There's nothing I can do with BIPCO's board majority. Is a cloistered and enclave that is aloof and smug, in my opinion, in its ability to ignore whatever they choose that is inconsistent with their preconceived and ill thought out policies. The town is a much more open and transparent process, and that is why I am here today. If BIPCO refuses to be a reasonable part of the environmental solution to our world's problems, then maybe the town can pull them kicking and screaming into modern times and out of the 1980s. What I am proposing with some additional language, I feel represents well thought out policies that meet the intent of the town charter and my goals of many of our stated policies. At least this is a start. And as I think was insinuated, this is not self-serving. This is a global problem that BIPCO has completely fumbled on purpose, I think, and the town has not really gotten involved to the extent possible. I'm trying to use my 30 some odd years of experience in the energy policy and energy analysis field to bring a perspective to you that you do not have. If you do not understand the professional aspect, then you should keep the same policy that you have. If you want to try and bring us into the future, the town planning policies need to change. I know you have little that you can do or have done with BIPCO, but you can do stuff within the town ordinances. And that's what I proposed before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thoughts?
So the two things that you have in here that are proposed, right? Or am I missing something? There's the minimum front setback change and the clarification on the pool heating systems are the two things that.
Those are the two
focusing on?
major ones. I'm going to add something else when it becomes a public discussion, and I'll tell you what it is. I do not think that farmland should be not able to install some type of solar project. Right now, the ordinance says there has to be basically another use of the property, like a building. That is contrary to good land use planning. There's plenty of examples that I have sent to planning, to the Conservation Commission, to the Block Island Land Trust, where environmentally friendly solar projects, pollinator gardens, et cetera, can be placed on farmland. Right now, planning says you cannot do that. And I'm not looking to create large solar fields, but I think that unused property should have the ability to install renewable energy projects, given what's going on in the world today. I think there should be some stipulations on what gets installed, but that's, I guess, for not discussion tonight. But to your point, yeah, it's those two main things, and then I've given some more thought to this. But right now, according to planning policies, you cannot install a solar system from the front setback of your property line to basically the door of your house. And we all know how the front setbacks are out here. They're crazy. And yet I brought this up time and time again. And it just was, it was me against basically a majority of the board, which has since changed. But that's crazy. Most of these properties you cannot see. And if that was the problem, the image of Block Island, well, that goes away with the reality of Block Island's front setbacks as defined. On these roads, you can't see them. But in my proposal, I tried to accommodate that opinion and make accommodations for where I thought would be reasonable.
Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
We've talked about this. I get how passionate you are about it, and value that passion, as you know. But the question before us is on the waiver of the fees.
Okay.
Not on the policy chart.
Well, so, yeah, so I did have a question though, because I think it's better to follow the process, right? The process is you bring this to the planning board.
Yep.
And the planning board brings it to us, then you don't have to get any fees waived, right? They absorb the fees. None of these seem like outlandish. I mean, can we give a directive to the planning board that we would like them to look at this?
So if I understand the process correctly, when we have an ordinance proposed that is sort of within the purview of planning, that's actually what we do. We refer it to them.
Yeah, it's that way.
This question is when a citizen, I'm sorry to be the master of the obvious, but I'm sort of clarifying my own thinking as I walk through this. This is a question about whether the proposer has to bear the advertising and filing costs. Or so Chris's point, and kick me under, now that we have a table here, I can say kick me under the table if I'm wrong. Chris's assertion is that planning is not raising these things organically as part of their process. Therefore, the only place to go from his perspective with an idea is to the town council via this process. Is that?
And therefore he's forced to pay the advertising. I mean, that's the argument.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying if we were to direct the planning board to entertain this, like, I don't know whether do we have that sort of power? Can we ask them to take this up?
So I think the corollary is we could, I suppose, theoretically say, no, this shouldn't go to no, we don't like this idea. Could we say that, or does everything that comes to us have to go to planning? I can't remember what the charter says.
You can't say no.
Oh, okay, got it.
45 days.
But this has been planned, hasn't it, Chris?
Years ago, and it came to what I predicted would be a bad resolution.
So
And that's been borne out.
Martha
Facts speak for themselves.
Martha and I always have the same clause to start our sentences on these issues. When I was on zoning, when I was on zoning, I remember this. This was the Cerulli case, the Cerulli application that led to this conversation. It's out by Dickens Farm, and the rules, I remember this vividly because the abutters were supportive, the applicant was obviously supportive. I think philosophically, the zoning board was supportive. But the ordinance said what the ordinance said, you know what I mean? And you don't have, there are some places where there are bright lines like that, where it's sort of like, sorry, but in order for us to say yes to this, the ordinance would have to change, so that's my background on it, was from that particular file.
Was that about pool or was that about front yard?
No, it was about front yard.
Front yard. right.
They actually had a tree that they didn't
Yeah.
want to take down
Yeah.
in the side yard. That's and a steep embankment up the back of their property.
And in addition to, I remember one of the meetings, Molly, there was a long discussion around, especially as it came into town or different zones. Do you really want panels in a front yard? And it got quite convoluted. Where it was obvious if it's commercial, there's a building in a street, but 80% of the property on Buck Island, I don't know, where the front yard is by sight. So
Yeah.
that's where it gets very convoluted. And to Chris's point, it's. Yeah,
I understand what he's asking
Yeah.
for. I guess my hang up here is in the process, right? So if Chris brings this to us, then we're hearing this, not the planning board? Not the
No,
zoning board?
this-
No.
Yeah, just to
No,
quickly.
I know this is about waiving fees.
No, I understand, but I can respond to your question.
Right.
So there is a process, and when it comes to the clerk's office, and then it goes to planning. Planning has I think 45 days in order to hold a hearing and give you, the town council, pardon me?
recommendation.
Yeah, recommendation.
Okay.
And then there's a timeline, I think, for you, there is a timeline for you all as well. I believe it's 65 days, but I'm not looking at the calendar. And then you have to be holding a public hearing on the application. So there's a very strict timeline. It goes to planning. If you were to ask him, ask direct planning to do it, they're already doing it as part of this whole application process.
Let me just clarify, because I get lost in this labyrinth. But if the planning board gives a negative response, that doesn't bind us.
It does not. No, it goes to public hearing.
No, that's all. I just want to be
Right.
sure,
It's an
be
important,
sure that was
it's really
clear.
important, Martha, yes.
And I'll just say, after 2 years, that's what I decided to do, because I did not want to waste any more of the public's time in a circular argument with the board chair about what was bucolic and versus, other national and local interests. So I thought the town council would see the problems with what the planning board had proposed. Town council said it was a good start. I told you, I would be back basically in 2 years because it will prove out not to be. And I think it's been borne out.
So here's my other question. Sorry. So what I'm very supportive of what I'm reading here that you want to do, right? And I could be supportive of waiving a fee, and yet what I see here is good ideas not fleshed out. I don't understand
You're not looking at the whole application.
I'm not looking at the whole.
No,
application.
I did forward you the whole application, but
Okay.
what you have in front of you is just his request to waive the fee.
Got it.
Yeah, so I don't want, he does have that fully fleshed out.
Okay.
Okay, and that was probably a week ago that I sent that.
Chris, are you asking this in general terms? Are you asking this specifically for this application?
Asking what, the waive of fees?
Right.
Honestly, if it's $100, I have no problem
It's advertised.
paying that. I am worried about what is in the public interest, and does the town take responsibility for what is public interest? since I'm really not self-interested in this at 65 and broken up, that I think that this is a public interest and not a personal interest. It's a professional interest more than anything else. But if this moves it, I know this is a stupid thing to say, but you know, $100 is not the issue. It was, does the community get behind changing things that are demonstrably inequitable from a national and local perspective? I think it's in the town's interest. So that was a request based on philosophy, but if the reality is different, I can deal with it.
What's that? Molly or Noah?
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
So can I just clarify? So for the $100, spending a lot of time talking about this, but it is $1,000 as
It's the
well, which then,
advertising
so it's
cost.
the advertising
Yeah,
fee. then.
that's where the numbers
Okay.
really happen.
I guess from a process point of view, and Chris, maybe you can enlighten me, but from a process point of view, is this now in front of planning as far as you know?
No, it is not. I thought the process, you know, was to bring it to you and you would bring it to planning. I did not think that I could bring this to planning initially without your direction. So that's why it's not been to planning.
Go ahead.
So it actually has been sent to planning, this document that you have, just so everybody understands the process.
Yes.
It has been sent to planning. Planning will have to hold a hearing on this within this, you know, probably will be at their November meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So in reality, the process that Molly's been referencing of planning and the town covering costs is already happening,
Well,
or at least it's starting.
it's not,
Tonight, the question is, yes, it's going down the path. The question tonight is,
Who pays for it?
or who's going to pay for it? That's
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
But planning will address it, will then come to you for public hearing and you guys will address it.
Okay, I should know this, but I don't. The advertising is when it comes before the council to change the ordinance, right? Not with plan.
Not before.
Planning is just a notice. Okay.
So I guess I see this as a policy about a social, Chris talks about the public. I think this is something about a social driver versus a client. I don't believe there's a client involved in this. I don't believe there's a project involved in this anymore. Maybe I'm wrong,
No,
but if that's the case, then I think there's an improvement to the process of planning and zoning. So I don't see why a resident would have to bear all that.
I sort of, I gotta tell you, I struggle with this because, the fact is $1,000 here, $1,000 there,
Sure.
pretty soon,
Death by night.
it's real money. And then on the other side, as I say, I'm struggling. On the other side, I think these energy issues have to be front and center in all the conversations we're having. So it's like, this is not about enabling, a different type of soda machine. This is real stuff. So,
I thought we've talked about this before. I remember this thing and I where my brain is, I thought it was so ridiculously obvious that it was settled a long time ago.
yeah, has it been to planning before, Chris? Or was it just zoning took that vote?
No, it has definitely been to planning, and in my letter to you folks, it states that planning, and I use the word concocted, a solution that I don't think the town council totally realized the implications. I had asked.
Did I vote for it? We all voted for it, right?
That's right, and
Yeah,
I predicted that this would have the consequences that you did not realize.
Martha told me to vote for it, just so you know.
That's, I don't,
And one of the things
I don't know what's scarier.
one of the things I requested, so it would help you visualize the implications of what planning had come up with, were diagrams to show what was allowed and what was not allowed. The town planner said she had provided them to you. I never saw them, but supposedly you would see that, let's say your house is within 15 feet of the back lot line, you would not be able to put a solar project in your front setback, from the front setback all the way to your front door. It was insane, in my humble opinion. And that was the consequence of what planning had devised. And I think they obfuscated that from you folks and from the community. So the written language, Molly, that I have given you folks that you don't have tries to fix that and make it more reasonable. And I feel I'm a pretty reasonable person on public policy. So anyways, you did see this, planning voted on it, you approved planning. I predicted it would not be good. And I think if you look at the building permits in the town for these type of technologies, you will find that I am 100% correct. So again, it's not for me, but I am not trying to take the town over the financial coals. And if there is a reasonable cost for me to bear, I am more than willing to do that for the public good. I don't have a problem with that. I just don't want to be subject to the cost of what, the advertising cost for what I feel it should be town policy that is in the public interest.
Can I
Yes.
interrupt and ask a question of Millie? Sort of a follow on to Martha's question, or maybe just a total repeat of Martha's question. These advertising costs would occur after planning said, yes, we support this ordinance.
No,
No.
this,
It happened anyway.
the advertising would begin before, because there,
Before,
it has to.
because
Because the way
of
the timeline
right,
is such
right.
that.
Thank you. Gotcha. Because I was trying to find an easy way out.
Let's try it.
So
that is not my hands.
Yeah.
I remember the conversation and
You can only throw up a
Neil does.
hand.
I can throw up one hand like this. But I can't believe we're still talking about this.
So Chris, I don't know all the background, so
You
do you
better.
have, yeah, I know there is, but do you have a history in this space?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you currently active in this space?
I am not building any new project. I have no new permits before the town. I am working full-time for a large energy design firm on utility scale projects. I have shut down basically my business because of BIPCO. Planning has a lesser effect on that. So it's not that planning is stopping me from working in this. It's really Block Island Power Company with their totally recalcitrant policies.
Okay, so the company you're
Yeah.
Has no.
so you're consulting with, do you benefit from the changes?
Absolutely not. They build projects that are bigger than Block Island Power.
Okay. I'm in favor of solar in general. We've got to fix and we've got to look forward.
Mhm.
If he doesn't have a vested interest, which it sounds like your background, there's some vested interest in this. I'm supportive of moving forward with the greater good for the island. To have this
You
review,
want to waive the fee?
to waive the fee.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll second that.
So I'll make a motion to waive the fee, in this case, for the advertising and, application.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Fees are waived.
I'm just
Thank you.
gonna throw in a comment here that I probably shouldn't throw in, but your constant axe grinding on the Block Island Power Company waters down your argument, because you have some really good points here and they're valid and these are great, but you lose the audience. So I would just say that's my own little, like, just maybe try not to do that,
Yeah.
because it's a
Okay,
really good idea and I'd like to see it go.
All right, let's go.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, but I'm going to respond to that comment. I will respond. It demands a response, requires a response. I don't think anybody else in this town or the state actually has put so much time into this issue as I have. The fact that I have to witness what goes on in this community and at the regulatory level is absolutely infuriating. And if you think what I wrote to you was snarky, as you have said in the past, you have not seen snarky. This is a totally intolerable policy based on false representation, in my professional opinion. So I keep myself actually pretty cool about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7, discuss and act on a memorandum of understanding between the town of New Shoreham and Block Island Health Services for the renovation expansion project at the Block Island Medical Center. I am going to be recusing myself, but I just wanted to, as I've said before, I have, my wife Susan is the chair of the board of the medical center. I have a formal, whatever it's called, opinion ruling from ethics around what I can and can't do. That basically is interestingly predicated on whether Susan appears before us as a town council. On this particular case, while she's not appearing, I know, because I can't not know, how closely Susan has worked with Mary Ann on this. And that just seems to me to bleed into pretty darn close to Susan appearing here. So I'm going to recuse myself. Thank you. Thank you, sir. See how the dog.
And Mary Ann, I would love a top line of this, but I did also. Did you make more rules? I'm sorry.
We appreciate getting a break from you too, so.
I did call the chair of the Block Island Health Services today and just made sure that they're very comfortable with this if we are. So Mary Ann, maybe you can just walk.
Yeah, so what this is as you all know, that there's major construction going on at the medical center. The two facilities, the two facilities there, three, we include the doctor's house and the nurse practitioner's house and the medical center. They're owned by the town of New Shoreham. So with the construction, it was decided it would be best if we entered into this MOU. The MOU is pretty self-explanatory, I think. A lot of the insurance requirements that you see in this MOU was based on a discussion I had with our town insurance company and also industry norms for major construction projects. This MOU has, as Keith said, Susan and I have spent a lot of time working on this. We also worked respectively with two attorneys, myself with James Callahan. I'm not sure who Susan worked with. Their board voted for this MOU, so it's before you this evening also to vote, and I recommend that the council approve it as presented.
Any questions, comments? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the MOU as presented. So, is there a second? Second, any questions? Everybody who votes yes, say yay. Yes, nay. Everybody who votes no, say no, there's nobody left. So unanimous decision, thank you. And I would like to also add in, Keith, you can come back. I would like to add in a thanks to all of the staff, the health services, and everybody that put so much work into it, Mary Ann, Susan, and all the lawyers. But it's going to be a pretty crazy few years up there with a lot of construction. And I know that adds stress to the staff and it adds stress to the community. So hopefully everybody can be patient, be a better world and stuff. So, thanks.
Thank you, guys. So the next item, I'm going to do this as briefly as I can. And I apologize, I was off island and didn't send this stuff to Millie to get on Clerkbase. It's really, it's actually something that Amy Land put together for us, for the community's background. And I know Martha and Sven and I have been aware of this for a few years. And I know Molly and Neil are aware of it, but just for background, the town of New Shoreham petitioned the legislature, as has nearly every town in Rhode Island, to enable it to have some flexibility in the way that it classifies and taxes property. This is a tool, and I just wanted to show this to you guys, that the vast majority of towns are using nowadays. This is a simple thing that Amy Land put together, and I'll give this to Millie. This is something that Amy Land put together that's a really simple chart that the state puts out that has the residential real estate mill rate, the commercial real estate, and then mill rate, and the personal property mill rate. Many towns that we would consider, nothing similar to us, but Narragansett, Newport, Warwick, East Greenwich, tax commercial and residential property at different rates. My own opinion about this, and I think it's true of Sven and perhaps of Martha, I'm not sure, is that I view this as an opportunity for community discussion around a more nuanced property tax system. I'm not sure I'm terribly excited about, well, the commercial rate is this and the residential rate is that. I'm not, but it does bear some community conversation around the idea of more appropriately allocating burden. Now, that could range all kinds of ways, but I'll give you an example. If a house gets purchased for purposes of solely being a rental, and we're seeing this increasingly, right? Companies are buying multiple houses, not just here, but in other jurisdictions as well, other states. Is that a commercial property? Is that, should that be taxed the same way as a hotel or a bed and breakfast? So I guess that's an overly long-winded way of saying we have a lot of work to do. I have personally a real commitment to sort of working with all of the stakeholders on this. But I think that this chart is a helpful sort of kickoff to just see what other towns are doing, to see that this is a tool that is certainly, to say the least, not unique to the town of New Shoreham. And it may take us a while to get there, but we have to start having this conversation.
If I can add on to it, I think your example of is a year-round or is a rental property a commercial versus residential, and how would you consider that? I think on the other side, homestead, i.e. people who live year-round, or as importantly, have a year-round apartment or house or whatever, as a 513 or something like that, should they get a little bit of a benefit and a little reduced? So I think, I think there's both the push towards housing year-round residents community. That's to me as important as are you, you know, commercial?
Yes, and
And I think we have, as a council, stressed how we're facing that direction.
yes,
And I think there's a huge tool to do that.
that's a really good point. I mean, part of the reason that I'm interested in this conversation is, are there things you can do with tax policy that makes, for example, year-round rental more attractive? You know, is there something you can do? I don't know, maybe. Anyway, to be honest with you, Amy and Marianne have been overwhelmed with an awful large number of issues lately. We haven't spent any time talking about this. I think I would like at some point to sort of schedule a more detailed, deeper dive into not only what other towns are doing, but frankly, to have a conversation among ourselves and with the community around what should our property tax system look like? You know, I mean, it's not.
Is the goal to be in place for the next budget?
Well, you know, I suppose that's possible. I think it might be optimistic. But for example, we do have the ability to do a homestead exemption. We could, you know, that's relatively straightforward. A lot of towns use those. But to me, again, you know, maybe I'm just my head is too much in the clouds on this stuff. But I actually am interested and excited about this because we now have the ability to be more nuanced in how we do this. You know, not just, as I say, you know, residential's this, commercial's this, see you later. To me, this legislation was important because of what it enables us maybe to do to incent particular behavior, particularly around housing and that sort of thing.
In my opinion, just to Neil's comment, having been through this for a few years, I would really like to see this instituted in the calendar year 25, meaning so a year and a half from now or whatever, so that we have the length of dialogue, but it also doesn't go for another 10 years and die on the vine. I do think trying to rush it would limit participation, which I don't think is a great idea.
An assessment is done at the end of the calendar year, so
Yep.
that's it,
Right.
end of December.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I think before anything else is even talked about, and I don't know why this exists. It's always existed. And it appears we're the only ones left doing this bizarre, to me bizarre. Why is property assessed at 80%?
That's
Or taxed at 80%? It makes absolutely no difference in what people are paying in taxes.
Doesn't.
And
That's what our mill rate would
I
be.
think
if we
more
taxed the 100.
towns, I'm so used to having that thing I put my foot on. More towns used to do this and we've gotten away from it. And I remember the year we went from 75% to 80%. There was a big, oh, well, we don't have a tax rate increase. Well, it's because you raised your, I mean, it was just nonsense.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it muddies the waters and it's a question that, you know, nobody has a sane answer to that I've ever heard. And you can just get rid of that. Can't we just do that this year? That we can do. It doesn't make any difference in anything bottom line, except it eliminates it's kind of like, there's a term for what is it? When you're going down a road and you hit a bump. It's not even a real bump, but it's just like one of those things that gets in the way. And please get that foolish thing out of the way.
Amy Land has her hand up.
Sure. Just to Martha's point about the 80%, we've also honestly had a request from the state about whether we could fall back in line with the rest of the communities and eliminate that. So it is on our radar, either as a standalone action or if and when we make adjustments to the tax structure.
I'm willing to do that for the state in exchange for $8 million for how important is it to them?
It has nothing to do with them.
And that would have to go to FTM presumably, right?
I don't think so. I thought that was just set by, where is that set, Amy? I don't remember. anymore.
Nobody's clear where it is set, actually. So I think
Let's just do it. Can we just do it then?
we will take a formal action at financial town meeting to make it clear that we're undoing it.
Okay,
Or the assessors can do it, Ken.
but that's on your radar, Amy.
Yes.
Thank you. Bill, did you have something?
Yeah, I just had a question on the process. Is this something we can do like a piecemeal and say, okay, we're gonna do the homestead act and then we can do the other?
Yep.
And is it something that it's council votes on, or is it, what's the process?
So this would, I think, definitely be a financial town meeting thing that the council would put, because everything, at the end of the day, the budget making body of the town is the financial town meeting. It's not us. But you're right. We could do piecemeal. We could reserve certain piece. You could theoretically say, whatever, this is the year we're going to do a tax abatement for people who own year-round rentals. So, whatever that is, you can definitely do it piecemeal. Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's never changing the bucket of money.
No,
Right. It's not changing. It's exactly. That's a really important point, Neil. Thank you. Yeah.
So that was my point. It's not changing the bucket. It's changing the
Right.
process. So, but as the way the law is written, it's something you would present to the voters.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm sorry to go on for a minute, but while it doesn't change the bucket, I think right now the system is not reflecting our desires as a community, i.e. in support of year-round housing or in support of year-round rentals or people living here as part of a community. And I think that is one area that I would love to see more reflected in how we go about business.
Yeah.
Even though the total number doesn't change, there could be a little tilt of the windmill.
All right. Anything else? So another discuss planning process of visitor centers, item number 9. We have I've talked to a lot of people about this. A lot of people have talked to me about it. We've talked about this among ourselves. We implemented a 6-month lease extension on the visitor center, and
we've had this item all the time.
And Harborside Fire happened. It's like we've had a few things taking our attention, and I mostly, as I said to a couple of friends this week, I mostly wanted to put this on the agenda to sort of bump it up because if we don't do that, we're gonna as things happen here, move on to other things. So I'm sure there are members of the council who are interested in working on this. I don't know, and I'm interested in hearing from the public about it, obviously, but I don't know whether this requires that we have like a sit-down meeting with interested parties to just sort of brainstorm around the visitor center, or because I think if there's unanimity about anything, it's that we have to do something about the visitor center. It's a question of, what that looks like, how long it takes, how much it is. We have a private owner of the land. We have a building that I think is owned by the town. It's just, it is about as clear as mud. And it has struck me as I've thought about this over the last 10 days or so that, I'm wondering whether it would be worthwhile to have a meeting relatively soon where we just sort of brainstorm about this, what this thing could be, what the barriers are, what the frustrations are, from the people who run it, from the people who use it, from the people who own hotels, et cetera. I think this is important enough and potentially significantly more valuable than we're making it. That the whole visitor center experience, the welcome center, however you want to, whatever you want to say, it just let's work on it.
My big question would be, does the council as a body want to do this, or is there a small group is there a small group that tries to move this forward, not quickly, but, getting the Ranowski family involved, getting, whatever it's going to have to be to move on this. And it's fine if it's the whole council, it just means it's going to happen in a slower fashion. I do think that there's value in having tourism council involved, because they are very welcoming and organized. Historically, we obviously have ambassadors that is sort of a separate from the chamber. I think Chris has had, Chris has had a lot of experience. So I think a small group could come together and move relatively efficiently, but I don't know whether the council wants to do it as a body. And I don't know who would be on that small.
I mean, I think the first thing we have to do is unmuddy it. Right?
Yes.
So we have to read the agreement with Interstate and understand, what do we have jurisdiction over? What do they have jurisdiction? It's their property, right? We have a building on their property. What are we allowed to do with that building? What are we not allowed to do with that building?
It's actually pretty clear what we can, when you.
I haven't seen it, so I don't know, but I mean, you have, so, I prefer to have a group that's working on it. I'm going to say, after working at the Chamber of Commerce for 5 years, that having the tourism and the chamber and the visitor center work on it together would be like just light a match. That's a powder keg. It's not, surprisingly, it's groups that have a similar goal but don't work well together. So I would not vote in favor of having those groups work on it. That's just my opinion. Certainly you guys can vote any other way. But I mean, I think everybody's clear on what the goal is, to welcome visitors with clean facilities. They're in rough shape. The
Yeah,
I think
facilities.
we're all in agreement. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of how we want to do it.
It's one of those issues where I think actually everybody ultimately
Agrees
you're
but
right.
doesn't
You
agree.
know,
It's so
it's
complicated.
and my thing on this is I want it to be attractive and welcoming, and I want it to serve, however you describe it, a public safety purpose that moves people around efficiently, gives people advice efficiently, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not saying that those things don't exist. I'm just saying that if I were putting together a list of 4 things I'd like the visitor center to do, giving information, looking welcoming, clean bathrooms, lockers, et cetera. So I don't necessarily need to be, I'm perfectly happy to trust someone to say, hey, Keith, here's what we need to do on this thing. So that would be fine with me. And I think it's probably more efficient.
So I do think Molly's point is very accurate. I think that with this is the can keeps getting kicked, and now we're at the point where everything's a mess and it just needs to be done. The Tourism Council, funds 15,000 every year, but then doesn't have input. The chamber's a membership organization, which is different than the Tourism Council. So there, although Molly articulated really well, there's common goals, but they come about at different ways. So their priorities are different. So, some of that gets muddied. Because of it, I reached out to Martha's Vineyard and I spoke to their director, and they combine, different states, but they combine the Tourism Council and the Chamber of Commerce under one person. They have to keep clear books on the tourism council, their
Right, I remember you
district.
telling me this.
They have to, just like Jess has to, is to allocate where the dollars are going.
Yep.
It can't be used for certain things. But we got to think about it differently, and how do we optimize both organizations potentially for the betterment of the island and of the guest experience. So I'm not saying that's the model we have to go with, but it's certainly interesting that pulls it all together, and we don't have two people or two groups. I don't want to say people, two groups kind of battling each other.
I'm sorry.
And
if
I
the-
just want to clarify too, that like when I say it's a bit of a mess, I don't mean that the chamber isn't doing a good job of
Oh, no,
giving
yeah, we all-
information, right?
But
Great, great.
Their information,
Just correct.
they're getting helped and.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
you would be shocked. It's much more than information. They mostly need a Band-Aid. But the administrative end of it is messy because they don't entirely mesh.
So, my understanding is this is a discussion, it says visitor center, but it's really about the welcoming center or the welcoming part. If we're gonna try and solve tourism council and chamber and a welcoming, warm invitation place, I'm out of here, we're done. I've been through this battle for many years, having been on tourism. I just think this is about the building, and this is about making it a nice entrance and a welcoming place. I have no interest right now in investing a lot of time solving the dilemma that we've been plagued with, I guess.
I think that might be the
Lindsay?
best place to start, Sven,
What?
is with the facility,
That's-
just
I'm in the
facility
I'm in-
and not worry about the rest of it just right away.
There are a whole lot. There, that building grew out of a very small public restroom that was down there for quite a few years. The building that's there now was built 20 some years ago. How much?
More than that.
Not 30. No, I know that, no, okay, real, okay.
30 years ago, the
I'm not
chamber was in the
arguing.
figurehead
No,
building.
exactly. It was 97. Because they broke ground and they started digging, and we had to have an emergency meeting because all the sewer line runs through here. And I said, what was the first thing I said to you guys about citing this building with the sewer line, the sewer line? And we lined up the manholes. I'm not making this up. I tell this story, I'm gonna keep telling this story until I die. This is a manhole, this is a manhole, we went from this manhole to this manhole. Oh, there's another one over here. It's underneath a dumpster, so we didn't know it was there. Nobody had ever looked at the maps of where the sewer lines were. So I knew exactly when that building was done, and it was cranked out, and it was open in the summer of 1997. And I never thought it was big enough.
Julie, thank you. Thank you for coming. Yes.
By the way, is your brother here?
My sister-in-law.
Oh.
Yes, Dan's coming to. So you
Is the green light on?
It is on.
Great.
So I am Julie Natalizia. I think you all know me. I guess I would say there's so many levels to talk about. One is definitely the facility. And I disagree, Molly. I know we've been a part of chamber and tourism. But we're all on the same page. Like we all want what's best. We need a place that welcomes our guests. And it doesn't, right? I mean, actually it does. Those people that have been running it for years and years and years and years have always done a good job at it, but it's not fiscally sustainable and physically it's a mess. So I think we do need, and I think we all should be a part of this conversation because it's time to reinvent it. I mean, I think Chris has done some great things and maybe the chamber is the best person to do that. I have no idea what I personally would want. I don't know, but we've got to start this conversation because it's almost November and we'll be
Yeah.
back here in May
Yep.
going, wow.
Absolutely.
Who's gonna run this place?
Yes.
What are we gonna do with it?
Yeah.
And how are we gonna?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not gonna get a building for next year.
Yes. Right.
I don't have a suggestion, but I do think that all parties should be a part of this maybe a small committee, and I know I've talked to Keith already.
Yes.
I'm happy to help if I can, so that's what I want to say. So, thanks.
All right, so let's figure out. Can two of you, whatever, meet with Julie, meet with Chris, meet with Renowski's, meet with Interstate, and come back, and then we can decide, you know, let's break this down into, sometimes the easiest way to do big things is to break it down into pieces. Does anybody want to do that? Any volunteers?
Well, I'm on the
I would do
tourism
that.
council, so it's
Oh, okay.
kinda.
I mean, I
So
would
you
do
wanna
it
do
with someone else.
I know that Shirlene Goldberg was willing to serve.
Oh, great.
Would it be, do one of you have to do it? Would it be, okay to have a committee with other people and come back to you guys with ideas? I don't know.
That would be fine with me. What do you
As long
think,
as it
Sven?
happens.
As long as it happens.
And I don't mean that, trust me,
Yeah.
we are not the proponents of efficiency. But I said as long as, you know,
Yeah, no,
and I think we all wanted to, so if Charlene were.
What about the Director of Public Works?
Mhm.
Or facilities,
Where are the manhole covers?
or facilities.
I mean, we're
I
talking.
mean,
about
it's a,
the
it's
facility,
Marianne.
right?
Let's
So,
get Marianne.
Go ahead, Bill.
I think that's a good idea, but I think to do that with the committee, you should set out, you know, some.
Clear goal.
parameters, Get the goals.
Yes.
So this way.
Yep. Chris,
I would also recommend.
you got to come up to the microphone for crying out loud. Jeez.
I would also recommend one of the Renowskis be involved. in
Yes.
John or her son.
that, a decision maker.
Land around it, and they release land all around it. You gotta have both.
So to Bill's point, what would we like in our next conversation with the group that's working on this? What do we want? Your recommendations? Go ahead.
How about I'm willing to put a straw man together of, you know, what's the objective, sort of the goals.
With
how we
Molly,
approach it.
'cause
I'd
Molly
love to do
wants
it with Molly, and then present to the council at the November meeting.
Working with Julie and Chris and Renowski's, et cetera?
Well, no,
Just walk
I'm
me
saying,
through.
what's their goal?
Oh, I see.
So in other words, let's be clear about what it is we
before we
want
put a.
Does that make
committee
sense?
before
together.
we get a committee together.
You hearing
So
that,
that-
Julie, Chris?
So that then it's very clear,
Okay.
hey, we want the building or we want to solve,
Great. That'll be on the agenda for our next meeting.
and Molly and I can draft something up and we can edit it. live.
Neil, make sense to you?
Yeah,
No, for us, it'll be
eight,
something. on
eight
the
size,
screen. For
six
you, it'll be
font,
on-
both sides, one piece of paper. Yes,
Come on back, Mary Ann. Does that sound like a plan?
yes. So Molly and I'll do that.
Yep.
We'll just come up with something and have it as a straw man.
Amy Land, you're up.
Hello.
1 or 2:30.
How are you, Amy?
I'm
good to
How are
see you.
Nice to see you all
Fabulous.
too.
Bye, Chris. Bye, Julie. Thank you guys for taking the time.
Very much.
Julie, I'll call you.
Go ahead, Amy. We have to discuss and act on a resolution authorizing the issue of bonds for the Thomas property.
Very straightforward. So this is the amount that was authorized at financial town meeting back in May. And so the next step, in order to be able to access and spend those dollars is this resolution. We may or may not include this amount in an issuance that will go to the market in December.
Right.
We're still making that decision, but this resolution will allow us to continue with the project and spend those dollars.
Any questions from the council about this?
I make a motion I make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of bonds, notes, and other evidence of indebtedness in the amount not to exceed $1 million for the financing of the planning, design, construction, etc. for rental property program on Plat 8, Lot 128 for the Thomas property. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Number 11, you're still up.
On the financials. So you have September financials in front of you. I actually don't have too much to point out. They're pretty straightforward, I would say. Building permit revenue took a big jump in September, $50,000, I think, which brings us more than halfway through our budgeted revenue for the year. So that's always a nice one to knock off. And then we talked a little bit last month about the hotel and meals tax, which are on
Yes.
page 6. So
Yes.
just to keep you updated, the dollars that you're seeing in front of you on page 6 represent July hotel and meals. The August has come in as well. And so for the hotel tax, July was down about 18%. August was up 10%. So that we don't really have a consistent pattern there on the hotel yet. On the meals tax, both July and August down about 10%. So that is sort of solidifying a little bit more in terms of a pattern, but we'll keep an eye on it and we can talk about it next month.
I'm going to be very interested to see, like the best weather we had this summer has been for the last 3 weeks.
Yes.
Since, you know what I mean? It just, by the way, it'll be interesting to see because I don't know what you've seen, Bill, but the ferries actually seem pretty crowded for this time of year. A few times I've been on lately. So have you seen anything, Paul, like that? Does it seem a little busier?
A little bit.
Yeah. Not very much. Go ahead, Bill.
I think
Sorry.
It's before Bill, I think one of the things that I have found this by looking back at things that I have written over the years. I think that we all have this idea of that there's nothing. Everything shuts down in September and October, and we're always surprised that there are people here. And
Who has that idea? I don't know.
I think a lot of people have this, well, everything really calms down and oh, it's so busy. And I find that things were at least as busy 20 years ago by things that I guess from there's little things I do downtown.
I was, just for the record, I was merely saying that the best weather we've had
Oh, yeah.
of the summer has been for the last, since the end of that tropical storm. And it seems like there are a lot of people out.
The weather's a huge factor.
Yeah.
And it's even the weather has gotten to the point this year that the local news is talking practically every night about how many weekends we've had at least one bad day of weather.
Yeah.
Amy, could I ask you a question about the 1%, the difference in the amount collected between the 1% tax to the state and the 1% tax to the town? Right, so the 1% affordable tax.
Yep.
Right, and then the 1% that from the rentals that goes to the state. Right, and there seems to be a difference in the amount that's being collected.
There is, and part of that is driven by the definitions of what they're collected on. Those are not consistent buckets necessarily. So you would not expect them to be an exact match. But that is something that we've struggled with a little bit and hopefully can continue to get more insight into the state's revenue pool. We haven't been able to break those numbers down very well. But that's been a challenge. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, but the town is collecting about $50,000 a year less on their 1%, right?
Bear with me. See if I can pull up that number.
I'm sorry.
No, it's a good question.
Right, so. For last fiscal year, so the cottage and room resellers, again, it's not exactly identical to the housing board 1%. The cottage and room resellers revenue for fiscal year 23 was about 219,000. The housing board number tends to run about 115, 120, I believe. That's off the top of my head, so give me a little latitude there. So there is a differential. 50,000 doesn't seem to make up the entirety of the difference, but there is a difference between the two. Again, there is a difference in the base. So parceling out exactly where the differences are, it has been hard to do, whether it's because of the difference in the base or whether there's actually a difference in remittance on what should be collected from identical populations.
So you have there's definitional differences between the state's levy and ours.
Absolutely.
Do you think it indicates that we might not be collecting the full 1% that should be collected for affordable housing?
I don't think you can draw that conclusion. I don't believe we have enough information to draw that conclusion.
I think we're collecting, it seems to me we're collecting what the base that we are stated to collect from. The question is, should we change that base? Does that make sense? In other words, the states has a different base, which means their 1% is going to be bigger.
Right. So, okay, I guess this is a conversation for another time. I'm sorry, I'm like
It's
pulling
an
this up,
important
but
question because it's about whether we're under collecting.
which it appears to me like we're under collecting, but I am not the numbers girl. So,
And I just don't have it with me. Millie
Right.
may, but we had looked at some collection rates of the housing board, and besides being able to say that they were very reasonably strong. I don't have the number off the top of my head.
right.
But it was,
And I'm asking you a question without any warning, so I apologize.
but I will pull that out and get that back to the council and the group.
But it sounds like the issue may be the structure, not the collection.
That's my point.
Yes.
No, I understand.
Yeah, I hear it.
Just trying to
Yeah,
be sure everybody
right.
got that
Yes, thank you.
clearly.
Thank you. Amy, is anything keeping you up awake at night on these financials?
It's things that haven't flowed through yet. So
Right.
we know that we have pockets of expenditures that are coming up. They're not showing up in the financials yet. But we know that they will. And so I would say that we've maxed out a lot of soft areas in the budget already. And so our flexibility moving through the rest of the year is fairly limited on the expenditure side. I think we can
That's an
say that
important
already.
point to continue to make.
Yep. One other item, if I may, is just to follow up on last month's ADP question. So we had that question out there about how much we spend with them, which is just under $15,000 a year for the services that we currently have with them. We started that relationship in early 22, and we've got about 3 years in that contract before there are, before termination penalties are waived and things like that. But those transitions are intense, moving payroll systems. So we made a major leap in 2022, moving to ADP. And there's always the option of adding more products in addition to what we currently use with them.
Yeah,
Happy to talk about that.
$15,000, you're not picking up much savings there. And to your point, the cost of moving stuff, the training, the supports that's needed. So I was thinking if it was a much larger number, you could carve off a piece to get some more administrative HR kind of tier one support, but not at 15,000.
But it still is a really worthwhile and valid question as we think about particularly the human resources functions and whether those, for example, could be fulfilled by an ADP,
Correct.
you know, as an adder to
Yeah.
you know. So I think we should keep that.
Yeah.
Because to me, that was, you know, I figured it was a relatively low number, but the thing that I was intrigued by in your question, because it's so outside of anything I've ever done, is that the ADP type companies also provide other consulting services that we may, that, you know, that may be an efficient way to, that may be an efficient way for us to acquire them. You know, I don't know, but, thank you, Amy.
Can I ask one more question, Amy? I have a question on page 5, where it says police officer fines. Is that for like parking tickets and?
Yes, that's exactly what that is. Yep.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, it's an increase over last year. And do you have any idea, do you think that's the police writing more tickets, or do you think that's because we raised the price of a parking ticket? Do you have any feeling towards that, or?
Without digging in further, I don't have something off the top of my head, but it's something we can look at, certainly, what the counts were versus the revenue.
I think it's fair to say that any positive change in parking revenues are because of Neil Murphy.
Yes, well, that's what I was trying to get at, right? No, I think it's terrific.
But to Molly, to your point, we should share what the chief had pulled with that 3-year comparison of paid tickets issued, tickets paid, tickets not paid. So you could take a look at it on how he broke that out, because it would be interesting to see if it's. No. We all have it. So we can get that, the Paul to just see what they did.
Yeah.
Right, and then maybe, because I know we've talked about moving towards having people have the ability to pay these tickets online and, right?
Yeah.
So we're still moving in that direction, I hope, right? So.
Yeah, and we've talked about future, once online, is there, if you don't pay by a certain date, there's an added fee, which, you know, could be incremental.
But the number's definitely gone up, which is great.
So philosophically, in a perfect world, would we have higher fees or no fees? Would we give higher fine income or none whatsoever?
In a perfect world.
Yeah, in a perfect world.
Indeed. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Mary Ann.
Bill had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. I apologize.
I was
Sorry
gonna
about
say, when we were earlier looking at the augmentation of hotel tax.
Yes.
It was something that was the busiest summer or not. That might be part of it, but also you have to remember that hotel tax is based on the rates of the room, and a lot of the rooms have.
Good point. Yes.
A little deeper, I think.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah. The base,
and one of the
base amount is different, right?
So one of the interesting things that came out of the Tourism Council was Newport has realized they've taken too much price, because their volume of people visiting isn't necessarily down, but people staying in Newport is down, and they're picking up, people are now staying outside of Newport and driving in because they're getting cheaper rooms outside of the city. So so to Bill's point, yes, it's kind of gets hidden a little bit by price, because I think everyone was taking price year after year over the last few years, and now we got a dilemma.
That's interesting. Mary Ann?
So you have my report in front of you. A couple of things I want to add to this report, and also highlight a couple of things. One is specifically the grants. We have received 2 additional grants since we last reported out, and one was the one with the boat infrastructure through DEM and wildlife and through the federal government, and also a hazardous mitigation assistance program, which is $45,000, which requires a $5,000 match. Not Amy, Allison informed me just this afternoon that we did apply, if you remember, with all the zoning changes that we need to do for a municipal technical assistant grant to help us rewrite all the zoning changes
Yes.
based on the adoption of the state. And she was informed this afternoon, we also got that grant.
Hey, that's
And,
fabulous.
and
Great stuff.
So one of the things, I keep saying Amy, Alice and I spoke about just last week about these grants, that we probably should put them on a spreadsheet and say what we've applied for, excuse me, what we received and the amounts, because I think that's really helpful, because every time I seem to be talking with Amy, there's another one we received. Also, as a reminder or something just to let the council know, as generous as these grants are and as wonderful as they are, they do have reporting requirements that are an additional
Burdens
because
and-
exactly an
Yes.
additional burning. So I am going to chat with our two grant writers to see if they can start helping us and picking up some of that load, because between myself and Allison and Amy, it's
Yeah.
it's a
That's
lot.
a-
And some of the
that's a real
reporting
important
requirements are
point.
quarterly, some are just semi-annually. So we're going to look into that. but-
It wouldn't surprise me if grant writing companies have software that reminds you, and fills fields, and, yeah. No,
So then we may be able to say, even though you didn't help us write these grants, can you track them for us? And they may
And
be
I-
able to come up with a spreadsheet.
And I think there's an additional thing that's important, Marianne, and that's sort of on the communication side of this. There's a lot of this kind of stuff going on, and we'll get a question a few times a year at a council meeting or at a financial time. How come we're not pursuing grants? Well, I know how much time it consumes you, and we've actually had quite a bit of success. And I think
This year we've been,
constantly
yeah.
telling the
We've had a good
community
year with grants
that
this
that
year.
kind of stuff is going on, because it's really positive.
yeah, I mean, just if you look at the 187, and 50, 45, and then another 97,000
Yeah.
supports it to our husband. So in 2 weeks' time, we've heard of
Hundreds of
187,
thousands of
100,
dollars.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
up to 350.
Yeah. Neil, were you going to say something?
No.
Oh, Sam?
I like the idea of the spreadsheet a lot, and especially on the what we don't get, why? And I don't mean that's any blamed anywhere. It's rather how can we sharpen things for the next time?
Yeah, like we may have something that would have been perfectly eligible if we were more shovel ready, for example, or yeah, right. Yeah.
On a different subject, if I can, in your report, you talked about an update when you met with Gray about the Lighthouse Inn and that property. Do you have any insight as to what it says here, provide an update on the property across from Ferry and Galilee?
Oh, yeah.
When you met
it's-
with
Yeah,
the,
and basically what they said is the demolition of the lighthouse will take place, hopefully within the next 6 months.
Right.
I had that when I was meeting with them, I did recommend that they may reach out to Manafort, because I thought they did a phenomenal job.
Good job.
While they were here. They really had a lot of work, and their presence was not seen. They just went about their project. So I did mention that. And they're looking to make that area more of a pedestrian landscape type of area. They did speak about possibly having some assigned parking for islanders in that area. Nothing definite yet. So we did talk about the need for assigned parking for some of the islanders. So that is in the back of his mind. And
is there anything we can do as a council to, that's sort of where I was going. Is there anything we can do as a council to urge that? Or get more support?
for the assigned parking?
Yeah, and
I
parking
think
for,
it's on his radar, base, because he was the one that brought it up when he was talking about the demolition in the area and the assigned parking. And then the G lot, is potential of future plans that more like 3 years down the road that he wasn't quite ready to come out public with, but he did talk briefly with us, so.
But it could be helpful to, obviously you'll keep it on the radar, but as we talked about educating visitors and the lack of space that Interstate has for billboards or the movable signs to keep them, it might be nice if there's an opportunity for them to think about what the town can be promoting in these billboard types, you know what I mean, right? That it changed digital, because we know we're limited in what we could do before they get to the island. So if there's something meaningful campaign wise we can do, it'd be helpful.
It's an interesting idea.
And then the only note that I want to highlight, because Mike is here, Joe Pokraka is going to be the highway superintendent on the 25th, right? Congratulations. Congratulations.
My bet is Molly's about to ask the question that I was gonna ask, so.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask about the
hazardous waste.
bluffs.
Oh, you were gonna ask about the bus. I was gonna ask
The what?
hazardous waste collection.
Oh, leaving that to you. I was curious what they had to say about the safety and repairs of the bluff stairs.
So the bluff stairs are in their hands and they will continue to do the repairs. Some of the repairs, Mike and his staff are doing that. I kind of asked that, let's get away from that. The bigger thing that we focus on with the bluffs is an access point next to the stairs for emergency situations, which means plowing, I'm not plowing, cutting, mowing down that area of the brush. And they were very open to it. As a matter of fact, we talked to them that we have a contractor on island that'll probably be open to do that. So we discussed a little bit about us taking that responsibility, but they will be reimbursing us.
Vertigo just to think of
We have a
mowing up
relationship
there.
with the contractor.
You know what I mean?
And it'll be easier for us to do it in the sense of the fact that we have a relationship.
So are they gonna take on the major repairs or are they still relying on the road crew?
No, the major repairs are their responsibility, and they did major repairs, I think about a year ago. Was it a year ago, Mike, they did it? Yeah. So the major repairs are their responsibility, even in that agreement that we signed where they're paying us $20,000, it's outlined there that the major repairs are their responsibility.
They've actually been quite responsive.
They've
on
been
that
pretty good.
over the
He's
last-
been wonderful. I have to say that. The fact that he's been out here and a handful of times, not just about the bluffs, but other stuff too. And the first time we asked them to come out and we talked to him about the bluffs, they did put some money in and got them some repairs done.
I wanted
Yeah,
to
we
ask
did.
about that too.
Yeah, one of the things we. Some of the specials that we became copy of flyer and specs and everything. And he said, let's come up later and see how we make our next song because it's something really.
And Mike, that's about putting a similar thing at the bluffs,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, and
Excellent.
I was very interested in
Great.
that whole concept.
Well, I would like, thank you both for your level of engagement with him, because it's very clear that there is a relationship there, not just, that seems, the work you guys are doing with the DOT, with DEM, it's just immensely valuable. Thank you.
Speaking of toilets, well, since we pushed the bathrooms back at Mansion Beach, we had pushed it to the fall. Where are we at with that?
Mike Shea, Director of Public Works. As we speak, in the past less than a week, all the parties have been contacted, the crane company, the trucking company offshore. The bathroom unit is over in Richmond, Rhode Island. It's just a matter of coming over. So, and Interstate Navigation has been informed, and we're just trying to make everything line up. It's trying to get 2 trucks over with the cranes at the correct tides and their schedules and all that. And Jeanette bringing it all together. So, I mean, it could happen in 2 weeks. It could happen in a month or 2. The beauty is we're not under the gun.
Right.
I mean, they will be in and operational for next summer.
Great.
All right, well, yeah, and while
You can.
no, don't go away, while you're at the stand. Anecdotally, what was the outcome of the beach access sign and going over the dune past Kittens?
It was stolen at the end of the summer.
Wait,
It
what?
wasn't really?
It's gone.
That's D, none of the above. It's got.
Well, all right. So the sign was stolen. Did it have any impact on we were trying to stop them going over? Do we have any anecdotal?
I saw both.
Okay.
I did see some folks, like the ones with strollers, that would
Go walking further
down
and-
to
okay.
that instead of dragging it up. And then I saw
Yeah.
plenty. At nighttime, I didn't see any of that, but that is the majority of, well, I can't say majority, but a large number of the folks going to the beaches.
Or was that?
The nighttime
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
from the bar.
Yeah.
area.
Wait,
Right.
which sign got stolen?
Do you frequent that area?
The reason why I can't comment too much on that is because I'm not out at night. So I don't know exactly. It's the one right by the kittens, right across from Macaroons.
Oh,
So there was a sign that basically pointed you towards the
Yes,
cut.
It says beach access, and then prior to the summer, we put in an arrow,
yes.
beach access pointing towards the
Right.
gateway.
Yeah.
And then another sign pointing onto the beach.
Okay,
Yeah,
I do, yes, okay.
Paul's
Thank
gonna
you.
take care of that next summer.
Thank you.
I appreciate your including this hazardous waste thing, and I'm glad Mike's here. We've had an offer from the Nature Conservancy on the table for a couple of years now. At some point, those guys have got to get out here to do this. Every other town in the state has access to hazardous waste disposal. I mean, jeepers, come on.
This doesn't, and this doesn't seem like any movement from what we got early last spring. That
I-
they're booked up through the fall of 2024. I mean, I know you didn't even have the job then. But I'm just
But I
curious.
can comment on.
Yes, let's hear it.
Yes, prior to me coming on in June, it was February of 23. And I believe it was Charlene that contacted Rhode Island Resource Recovery about that. They were completely booked up for this year, 23. I've emailed the director there and we are in line for a year from now, October of 24. We couldn't it's going to be a Saturday. We can not pin down a date right now because their vendor that does this, it's out to bid. So once those bids come back, the way I understood is they anticipated it to be the same vendor. They just can't pinpoint a date until their side
I
is.
think we're all on the same page. Just pick a damn date and let's get it
Yeah,
on
and-
the calendar.
And the thought in October was, in the springtime out here, everyone is just going crazy to get
Mhm.
ready. Homeowners, businesses, and
Yeah.
all that sort of thing. Weather can be sketchy. A year from now, October, weather is great. Homeowners are back in their homes, renters, and all that, they can clear out their closets of whatever, so.
Terrific. Thank you
Yep.
for paying attention.
Thank you.
Mike, I'm sorry, is it worth when that starts to happen, or just a suggestion, can we get another one scheduled for the year after or start to get into a queue? Versus,
That's a really good, that's a
when
really
we
good
think
point,
about it
yes.
4 years later.
I would think
So
so.
I mean, if there's a way to just sort of look every other
Yeah.
year, just,
That's a great idea. Yeah.
thank you.
I would
Yeah.
think so.
Is this the Echo Depot?
Yes.
Is how long has it been? It's been forever.
Oh, boy. It
19
it has been a long time.
A long
27.
I do recall
27 years.
Oh, Stop talking. If you don't have something positive to contribute, be quiet.
That was positive.
It's been a long time.
Like 27 years.
Yes,
But
the last one
we're
I
gonna have a
recall
date.
was up at the school and it was overwhelming and
Yeah.
I'm guessing 15 years
Yeah.
or more possible.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, they had to come back the next day because it was so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, item 30, is there any other questions for Marianne on her report? Item 13, discuss and act on board, commission and committees. We have a vacancy, two. I'm telling them, no.
It's a typo.
It's just unacceptable.
So there's a vacancy at first, is there a vacancy at first ward?
Right, exactly. There will be.
One year, there's one alternate position available for both sewer and water.
And I can't seem to drop the rest of it.
Yeah,
So.
no worries.
Better luck this week.
So can I suggest something for people to ruminate on, not for conversation or debate? It's not going to take long. Molly and I worked on when we were working on charter, spent a lot of time on whether the town council could serve on boards and commissions, and we came up with language that it could be done for a specific purpose for a specific duration, basically. And given the amount of investment that we're making, quite frankly, some of the challenges that we've witnessed this week, I want you guys to think about whether it would make sense for these alternate positions to be filled by a member of the town council, so that, to enhance the communication.
I vote Keith is on warrant.
I just want to throw it on the table. I don't want to have it. Maybe that would make some sense.
I'm sorry, you're asking to vote to allow.
No, I'm not asking for a vote. I'm not asking for anything. I just want, I've been thinking about this, that if there is a commission with whom we need to have better communication, and with whom and on whom a lot of taxpayer dollars are appropriately being focused, maybe this is one where we say, maybe that makes some sense.
Yeah.
Tell me, I'm totally fine if the answer
I'm
is
only
no.
watching to see if James is falling out of his chair or not. So, at your suggestion.
Yes, well,
James may be the.
I'm just kidding.
beautiful. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you, guys.
That's the litmus test.